We now come to the next portrait, which is either Mr. Howells or Mr. Laffin. I cannot tell which because the label is lost. But it will do for both because the features are Mr. Howells, S, while the expression is Mr. Laffin, S. This work will bear critical examination. The next picture is part of an animal, but I do not know the name of it. It is not finished. The front end of it went around a corner before I could get to it. The front end of it went around a corner before I could get to it. The best and most winning and eloquent portrait my brush has ever produced. We will conclude with the portrait of a lady in the style of Raphael. Originally, I started it out for Queen Elizabeth, but was not able to do the lace hopper her head projects out of. Therefore, I tried to turn it into Pocahontas, but was again baffled and was compelled to make further modifications, this time achieving success. By spiritualizing it and turning it into the noble mother of our race, and throwing into the countenance the sacred joy, which her first tailor-made outfit infuses into her spirit, I was enabled to add to my gallery the best and most winning and eloquent portrait my brush has ever produced. The most effective encouragement a beginner can have is the encouragement which he gets from noting his own progress with an alert and persistent eye. Save up your works and date them. As the years go by, run your eye over them from time to time and measure your advancing stride. This will thrill you, this will nerve you, this will inspire you as nothing else can. It has been my own course, and to it I owe the most that I am today in art. When I look back and examine my first effort and then compare it with my latest, it seems unbelievable that I have climbed so high in 31 years. Yet so it is. Practice, that is the secret. From 3 to 7 hours a day, it is all that is required. The results are sure, whereas indolence achieves nothing great. It seems unbelievable that I have climbed so high in 31 years. Sold to Satan. 1904. It was at this time that I concluded to sell my soul to Satan. Steel was a way down, so was St. Paul. It was the same with all the desirable stocks, in fact, and so, if I did not turn out to be a way down myself, now was my time to raise a stake and make my fortune. Without further consideration, I sent word to the local agent, Mr. Blank, with description and present condition of the property, and an interview with Satan was promptly arranged, on a basis of 2.5%, this commission payable only in case a trade should be consummated. I sat in the dark, waiting and thinking. How still it was. Then came the deep voice of a far-off bell proclaiming midnight boom mm, boom mm, boom mm, and I rose to receive my guest and braced myself for the thunder crash and the brimstone stench which should announce his arrival. But there was no crash, no stench. Through the closed door, and noiseless, came the modern Satan, just as we see him on the stage, tall, slender, graceful, in tights and trunks, a short cape mantling his shoulders, a rapier at his side, a single drooping feather in his jaunty cap, and on his intellectual face the well-known and high-bred Mephistophelian smile. 327, but he was not a fire coal. He was not red, no, on the contrary. He was a softly glowing, richly smoldering torch, column, statue of pallid light, faintly tinted with a spiritual green, and out from him a lunar splendor flowed such as one sees glinting from the crinkled waves of tropic seas when the moon rides high in cloudless skies. He made his customary stage obeisance, resting his left hand upon his sword hilt and removing his cap with his right and making that handsome sweep with it which we know so well. Then we sat down. Ah, he was an incandescent glory, a nebular dream, and so much improved by his change of color. He must have seen the admiration in my illuminated face, but he took no notice of it, being long ago used to it in faces of other Christians with whom he had trade relations. A half-hour of hot toddy and weather chat, mixed with occasional tentative feelers on my part and rejoinders of, "Well, I could hardly pay that for it, you know," on his, had much modified my shyness and put me so much at my ease that I was emboldened to feed my curiosity a little. So I chanced the remark that he was surprisingly different from the traditions, and I wished I knew what it was he was made of. He was not offended, but answered with frank simplicity. "Radium." "That accounts for it," I exclaimed. "It is the loveliest effulgence I have ever seen. The hard and heartless glare of the electric doesn't compare with it. I suppose your majesty weighs about 328, I stand 6 feet 1. Fleshed and blooded I would weigh 215, but radium, like other metals, is heavy. I weigh 900 odd. I gazed hungrily upon him, saying to myself, what riches, what a mine. 900 pounds at, say, $3,500,000 a pound would be then a treacherous thought burst into my mind. He laughed a good hearty laugh and said, I perceive your thought, and what a handsomely original idea it is. To kidnap Satan, and stalk him, and incorporate him, and water the stock up to 10 billions just 3 times its actual value and blanket the world with it. My blush had turned the moonlight to a crimson mist, such as veils and spectralizes the domes and towers of Florence at sunset, and makes the spectator drunk with joy to see. And he pitied me, and dropped his tone of irony, and assumed a grave and reflective one which had a pleasanter sound for me, and under its kindly influence my pains were presently healed, and I thanked him for his courtesy. Then he said, One good turn deserves another, and I will pay you a compliment. Do you know I have been trading with your poor pathetic race for ages, and you are the first person who has ever been intelligent enough to divine the large commercial value of my makeup. I purred to myself and looked as modest as I could. Yes, you are the first, he continued. All through the Middle Ages, I used to buy Christian 329 souls at fancy rates, building bridges and cathedrals in a single night in return, and getting swindled out of my Christian nearly every time that I dealt with a priestess history, will concede but making it up on the lay square dealer now and then, as I admit. But none of those people ever guessed where the real big money lay. You are the first. I refilled his glass and gave him another cover. But he was experienced by this time. He inspected the cigar pensively a while, then, What do you pay for these? He asked. 2 cents, but they come cheaper when you take a barrel. He went on inspecting, also mumbling comments, apparently to himself. Black rough skin rumpled, irregular, wrinkled, barky, with crispy curled up places on it burnt leather aspect, like the shoes of the damned that sit in pairs before the room doors at home of a Sunday morning. He sighed at thought of his home and was silent a moment. Then he said gently, Tell me about this projectile. It is the discovery of a great Italian statesman, I said. Cavour. One day he lit his cigar, then laid it down and went on writing and forgot it. It lay in a pool of ink and got soaked. By and by he noticed it and laid it on the stove to dry. When it was dry he lit it and at once noticed that it didn't taste the same as it did before. And so, did he say what it tasted like before? No, I think not. But he called the government chemist and told him to find out the source of that 330 new taste and report. The chemist applied the tests and reported that the source was the presence of sulfate of iron, touched up and spiritualized with vinegar, the combination out of which one makes ink. Cavour told him to introduce the brand in the interest of the finances. So, ever since then this brand passes through the ink factory, with the great result that both the ink and the cigar suffer a sea change into something new and strange. This is history, sire, not a work of the imagination. So then he took up his present again, and touched it to the forefinger of his other hand for an instant, which made it break into flame and fragrance, but he changed his mind at that point and laid the torpedo down, saying, courteously, With permission, I will save it for Voltaire. I was greatly pleased and flattered to be connected in even this little way with that great man and be mentioned to him, as no doubt would be the case. So I hastened to fetch a bundle of 50 for distribution among others of the renowned and lamented Goethe, and Homer, and Socrates, and Confucius, and so on. But Satan said he had nothing against those. Then he dropped back into reminiscences of the old times once more, and presently said, They knew nothing about radium, and it would have had no value for them if they had known about it. In 20 million years, it has had no value for your race until the revolutionizing steam and machinery age was born, which was only a few years before you were born yourself. It was a stunning little century, for sure, that 19th, 331, but it's a poor thing compared to what the 20th is going to be. By request, he explained why he thought so. Because power was so costly then, and everything goes by power, the steamship, the locomotive, and everything else. Coal, you see, you have to have it. No steam and no electricity without it. And it's such a waste, for you burn it up and it's gone. But radium, that's another matter. With my 900 pounds you could light the world and heat it and run all its ships and machines and railways 100 million years and not use up 5 pounds of it in the whole time. And then, quick, my soul is yours, dear ancestor. Take it, we'll start a company. But he asked my age, which is 68, then politely sidetracked the proposition, probably not wishing to take advantage of himself. Then he went on talking admiringly of radium, and how with its own natural and inherent heat it could go on melting its own weight of ice 24 times in 24 hours, and keep it up forever without losing bulk or weight. And how a pound of it, if exposed in this room, would blast the place like a breath from hell. and burn me to a crisp in a quarter of a minute and was going on like that. But I interrupted and said, "But you are here, Majesty 900 pounds and the temperature is balmy and pleasant. I don't understand." "Well," he said, hesitatingly, "it is a secret, but I may as well reveal it, for these prying and impertinent 332 chemists are going to find it out sometime or other anyway. Perhaps you have read what Madame Curie says about radium, how she goes searching among its splendid secrets and seizes upon one after another of them, and italicizes its specialty. How she says, the compounds of radium are spontaneously luminous require no coal in the production of light, you see, how she says, a glass vessel containing radium spontaneously charges itself with electricity, no coal or water power required to generate it, you see. How she says, radium possesses the remarkable property of liberating heat, spontaneously and continuously, no coal required to fire up on the world's machinery, you see. She ransacks the pitchblende for its radioactive substances and captures three and labels them. One which is embodied with bismuth she names polonium, one which is embodied with barium she names radium, the name given to the third was actinium. Now listen, she says, the question now was to separate the polonium from the bismuth. This is the task that has occupied us for years and has been a most difficult one. For years, you see, for years. That is their way, those plagues, those scientists peg, dig, plod. I wish I could catch a cargo of them for my place. It would be an economy. Yes, for years, you see, they never give up. Patience, hope, faith, perseverance. It is the way of all the breed. Columbus and the rest. In radium, this lady has added a new world to the planet's possessions and matched Columbus and his peer. She has set herself the task of divorcing polonium and bismuth. When she succeeds, she will have done what, should you say? Pray name it, Majesty. It's another new world, added a gigantic one. I will explain, for you would never divine the size of it, and she herself does not suspect it. Do, Majesty, I beg of you. Polonium, freed from bismuth and made independent, is the one and only power that can control radium, restrain its destructive forces, tame them, reduce them to obedience, and make them do useful and profitable work for your race. Examine my skin. What do you think of it? It is delicate, silky, transparent, thin as a gelatine film, exquisite, beautiful, Majesty. It is made of polonium. All the rest of me is radium. If I should strip off my skin, the world would vanish away in a flash of flame and a puff of smoke, and the remnants of the extinguished moon would sift down through space, a mere snow shower of gray ashes. I made no comment, I only trembled. You understand now, he continued. I burn, I suffer within, my pains are measureless and eternal, but my skin protects you and the globe from harm. Heat is power energy, but is only useful to man when he can control it and graduate its application to his needs. You cannot do that with radium, now. It will not be prodigiously useful to you, until polonium shall put the slave whip in your hand. I can release from my body the radium force in any measure I please, great or small. At my will I can set in motion 330 for the works of a lady's watch or destroy a world. You saw me light that unholy cigar with my finger. I remembered it. Try to imagine how minute was the fraction of energy released to do that small thing. You are aware that everything is made up of restless and revolving molecules. Everything, furniture, rocks, water, iron, horses, men, everything that exists. Yes. Molecules of scores of different sizes and weights, but none of them big enough to be seen by help of any microscope. Yes. And that each molecule is made up of thousands of separate and never-resting little particles called atoms. Yes. And that up to recent times, the smallest atom known to science was the hydrogen atom, which was 1,000 times smaller than the atom that went to the building of any other molecule. Yes. Well, the radium atom from the positive pole is 5,000 times smaller than that atom. This unspeakably minute atom is called an electron. Now then, out of my long affection for you and for your lineage, I will reveal to you a secret known to no scientist as yet, the secret of the firefly's light and the glowworms. It is produced by a single electron imprisoned in a polonium atom. Sire, it is a wonderful thing, and the scientific world would be grateful to know this secret, which has baffled and defeated all its searchings for more than 2 centuries. To think, a single electron, 5,000 times smaller than the invisible hydrogen atom, to produce that explosion of vivid light which makes the summer night so beautiful. And consider, said Satan, it is the only instance in all nature where radium exists in a pure state unencumbered by fettering alliances, where polonium enjoys the like emancipation, and where the pair are enabled to labor together in a gracious and beneficent and effective partnership. Suppose the protecting polonium envelope were removed. The radium spark would flash, but once in the firefly would be consumed to vapor. Do you value this old iron letterpress? No, Majesty, for it is not mine. Then I will destroy it and let you see. I lit the ostensible cigar with the heat energy of a single electron, the equipment of a single lightning bug. I will turn on 20,000 electrons now. He touched the massive thing and it exploded with a cannon crash, leaving nothing but vacancy where it had stood. For 3 minutes the air was a dense pink fog of sparks, through which Satan loomed dim and vague, then the place cleared and his soft, rich moonlight pervaded it again. He said, "You see, the radium in 20,000 lightning bugs would run a racing mobile forever. There's no waste, no diminution of it." Then he remarked in a quite casual way, "We use nothing but radium at home." I was astonished, and interested too, for I have friends there and relatives. I had always believed in 336 accordance with my early teachings that the fuel was soft coal and brimstone. He noticed the thought and answered it. Soft coal and brimstone is the tradition? Yes, but it is an error. We could use it, at least we could make out with it after a fashion, but it has several defects. It is not cleanly, it ordinarily makes but a temperate fire, and it would be exceedingly difficult, if even possible, to heat it up to standard some days. And as for the supply, all the worlds and systems could not furnish enough to keep us going halfway through eternity. Without radium, there could be no hell, certainly not a satisfactory one. Why? Because if we hadn't radium, we should have to dress the souls in some other material. Then, of course, they would burn up and get out of trouble. They would not last an hour, you know that. Why, yes, now that you mention it. But I suppose they were dressed in their natural flesh. They look so in the pictures in the Sistine Chapel and in the illustrated books, you know. Yes, our damned look as they looked in the world, but it isn't flesh. Flesh could not survive any longer than that copying press survived it, would explode and turn to a fog of sparks, and the result desired in sending it there would be defeated. Believe me, radium is the only wear. I see it now, I said with prophetic discomfort. I know that you are right, Majesty. I speak from experience, you shall see when you get there. 337, he said this as if he thought I was eaten up with curiosity, but it was because he did not know me. He sat reflecting a minute, then he said, "I will make your fortune." It cheered me up and I felt better. I thanked him and was all eagerness and attention. "Do you know," he continued, "where they find the bones of the extinct moa in New Zealand? All in a pile, thousands and thousands of them banked together in a mass 20 feet deep. And do you know where they find the tusks of the extinct mastodon of the Pleistocene? Banked together in acres off the mouth of the Lena and Ivory mine, which has furnished freight for Chinese caravans for 500 years. Do you know the phosphate beds of our South? They are miles in extent, a limitless mass and jumble of bones of vast animals whose like exists no longer in the earth a cemetery. A mighty cemetery, that is what it is. All over the earth there are such cemeteries. Whence came the instinct that made those families of creatures go to a chosen and particular spot to die when sickness came upon them, and they perceived that their end was near? It is a mystery. Not even science has been able to uncover the secret of it. But there stands the fact. Listen, then. For 1,000,000 years there has been a firefly cemetery. Hopefully, appealingly, I opened my mouth. He motioned me to close it and went on. It is in a scooped-out bowl, half as big as this room, on the top of a snow summit of the Cordilleras. That bowl is level full of what? Pure firefly 338 radium, and the glow and heat of hell. For countless ages, myriads of fireflies have daily flown thither and died in that bowl, and been burned to vapor in an instant, each fly leaving as its contribution its only indestructible particle, its single electron of pure radium. There is energy enough there to light the whole world, heat the whole world's machinery, supply the whole world's transportation power from now till the end of eternity. The massed riches of the planet could not furnish its value in money. You are mine, it is yours. When Madame Curie isolates polonium, clothe yourself in a skin of it and go and take possession. Then he vanished and left me in the dark when I was just in the act of thanking him. I can find the bowl by the light it will cast upon the sky. I can get the polonium presently, when that illustrious lady in France isolates it from the bismuth. Stock is for sale. Apply to Mark Twain. That day in Eden. Passage from Satan's diary. Long ago, I was in the bushes near the tree of knowledge when the man and the woman came there and had a conversation. I was present now when they came again after all these years. They were as before mere boy and girl trim, rounded, slender, flexible, snow images lightly flushed with the pink of the skies, innocently unconscious of their nakedness, lovely to look upon, beautiful beyond words. I listened again. Again, as in that former time, they puzzled over those words, good, evil, death, and tried to reason out their meaning. But of course, they were not able to do it. Adam said, "Come, maybe we can find Satan. He might know these things." Then I came forth, still gazing upon Eve and admiring, and said to her, "You have not seen me before, sweet creature, but I have seen you. I have seen all the animals, but in beauty none of them equals you. Your hair, your eyes, your face, your flesh tints, your form, the tapering grace of your white limbs all are beautiful, adorable, perfect." It gave her pleasure, and she looked herself over, putting out a foot and a hand and admiring them. Then she naively said, 340, it is a joy to be so beautiful, and Adam he is the same. She turned him about, this way and that, to show him off, with such guileless pride in her blue eyes, and he took it all as just matter of course, and was innocently happy in it, and said, "When I have flowers on my head it is better still." Eve said, "It is true, you shall see." And she flitted hither and thither like a butterfly and plucked flowers, and in a moment laced their stems together in a glowing wreath and set it upon his head. Then tiptoed and gave it a pat here and there with her nimble fingers, with each pat enhancing its grace and shape. None knows how nor why it should so result, but in it there is a law somewhere, though the delicate art and mystery of it is her secret alone, and not learnable by another. And when at last it was to her mind, she clapped her hands for pleasure, then reached up and kissed him as pretty a sight, taken altogether, as in my experience I have seen. Presently, to the matter in hand, the meaning of those words would I tell her. Certainly none could be more willing, but how was I to do it? I could think of no way to make her understand, and I said so. I said, "I will try, but it is hardly of use. For instance, what is pain?" "Pain, I do not know." "Certainly, how should you? Pain is not of your world. Pain is impossible to you. You have never experienced a physical pain. Reduce that to a formula, a principle, and what have we? 341. What have we? This, things which are outside of our orbit, our own particular world, things which by our constitution and equipment we are unable to see, or feel, or otherwise experience cannot be made comprehensible to us in words. There you have the whole thing in a nutshell. It is a principle, it is axiomatic, it is a law. Now do you understand? The gentle creature looked dazed, and for all result she was delivered of this vacant remark. What is axiomatic? She had missed the point. Necessarily she would, yet her effort was success for me, for it was a vivid confirmation of the truth of what I had been saying. Axiomatic was for the present a thing outside of the world of her experience, therefore it had no meaning for her. I ignored her question and continued. What is fear? Fear, I do not know. Naturally, why should you? You have not felt it, you cannot feel it, it does not belong in your world. With 100,000 words, I should not be able to make you understand what fear is. How then am I to explain death to you? You have never seen it, it is foreign to your world, it is impossible to make the word mean anything to you, so far as I can see. In a way, it is a sleep. Oh, I know what that is. But it is a sleep only in a way, as I said. It is more than a sleep. Sleep is pleasant, sleep is lovely. But death is a long sleep, very long. 342, oh, all the lovelier. Therefore I think nothing could be better than death's. I said to myself, poor child, someday you may know what a pathetic truth you have spoken. Someday you may say, out of a broken heart, come to me, O death the compassionate. Steep me in the merciful oblivion, O refuge of the sorrowful, friend of the forsaken and the desolate. Then I said aloud, but this sleep is eternal. The word went over her head, necessarily it would. Eternal, what is eternal? Ah, that also is outside of your world as yet. There is no way to make you understand it. It was a hopeless case. Words referring to things outside of her experience were a foreign language to her, and meaningless. She was like a little baby whose mother says to it, "Don't put your finger in the candle flame, it will burn you." Burn it is a foreign word to the baby, and will have no terrors for it until experience shall have revealed its meaning. It is not worthwhile for Mama to make the remark, the baby will goo-goo cheerfully, and put its finger in the pretty flame once. After these private reflections, I said again that I did not think there was any way to make her understand the meaning of the word eternal. She was silent a while, turning these deep matters over in the unworn machinery of her mind. Then she gave up the puzzle and shifted her ground, saying, "Well, there are those other words. What is good and what is evil?" 343. It is another difficulty. They again are outside of your world. They have place in the moral kingdom only. You have no morals. What are morals? A system of law which distinguishes between right and wrong, good morals and bad. These things do not exist for you. I cannot make it clear. You would not understand. But try. Well, obedience to constituted authority is a moral law. Suppose Adam should forbid you to put your child in the river and leave it there overnight, would you put the child there? She answered with a darling simplicity and guilelessness. Why, yes, if I wanted to. There, it is just as I said, you would not know any better. You have no idea of duty, command, obedience. They have no meaning for you. In your present estate, you are in no possible way responsible for anything you do or say or think. It is impossible for you to do wrong, for you have no more notion of right and wrong than the other animals have. You and they can do only right. Whatever you and they do is right and innocent. It is a divine estate, the loftiest and purest attainable in heaven and in earth. It is the angel gift. The angels are wholly pure and sinless, for they do not know right from wrong, and all the acts of such are blameless. No one can do wrong without knowing how to distinguish between right and wrong. Is it an advantage to know? 344. Most certainly not. That knowledge would remove all that is divine, all that is angelic from the angels, and immeasurably degrade them. Are there any persons that know right from wrong? Not in well, not in heaven. What gives that knowledge? The moral sense. What is that? Well, no matter, be thankful that you lack it. Why? Because it is a degradation, a disaster. Without it one cannot do wrong, with it one can. Therefore it has but one office, only one, to teach how to do wrong. It can teach no other thing whatever. It is the creator of wrong. Wrong cannot exist until the moral sense brings it into being. How can one acquire the moral sense? By eating of the fruit of the tree here. But why do you wish to know? Would you like to have the moral sense? She turned wistfully to Adam. Would you like to have it? He showed no particular interest and only said, I am indifferent. I have not understood any of this talk, but if you like we will eat it, for I cannot see that there is any objection to it. Poor ignorant things, the command of refrain had meant nothing to them. They were but children, and could not understand untried things and verbal abstractions, which stood for matters outside of their 345 little world and their narrow experience. Eve reached for an apple. Oh, farewell, Eden and your sinless joys, come poverty and pain, hunger and cold and heartbreak, bereavement, tears and shame, envy, strife, malice and dishonor, age, weariness, remorse, then desperation and the prayer for the release of death, indifferent that the gates of hell yawn beyond it. She tasted the fruit fell from her hand. It was pitiful. She was like one who wakens slow and confusedly out of a sleep. She gazed half vacantly at me, then at Adam, holding her curtaining fleece of golden hair back with her hand, then her wandering glance fell upon her naked person. The red blood mounted to her cheek, and she sprang behind a bush and stood there crying and saying, Oh, my modesty is lost to me, my unoffending form is become a shame to me. She moaned and muttered in her pain and dropped her head, saying, I am degraded, I have fallen, oh, so low, and I shall never rise again. Adam's eyes were fixed upon her in a dreamy amazement, for he could not understand what had happened, it being outside his world as yet, and her words having no meaning for one void of the moral sense. And now his wonder grew, for unknown to Eve her 100 years rose upon her, and faded the heaven of her eyes and the tints of her young flesh, and touched her hair with gray, and traced faint sprays of wrinkles about her mouth and eyes, and shrunk her form, and dulled the satin luster of her skin. 346. All this the fair boy saw. Then loyally and bravely he took the apple and tasted it, saying nothing. The change came upon him also. Then he gathered boughs for both and clothed their nakedness, and they turned and went their way, hand in hand and bent with age, and so passed from sight. Eve speaks. 1. They drove us from the garden with their swords of flame, the fierce cherubim. And what had we done? We meant no harm. We were ignorant and did as any other children might do. We could not know it was wrong to disobey the command, for the words were strange to us and we did not understand them. We did not know right from wrong. How should we know? We could not without the moral sense. It was not possible. If we had been given the moral sense first, that would have been fairer, that would have been kinder. Then we should be to blame if we disobeyed. But to say to us poor, ignorant children words which we could not understand, and then punish us because we did not do as we were told, how can that be justified? We knew no more then than this littlest child of mine knows now. With its 4 years, not so much, I think. Would I say to it, if thou touchest this bread, I will overwhelm thee with unimaginable disaster, even to the dissolution of thy corporeal elements. And when it took the bread and smiled up in my face, thinking no harm, as not understanding those strange words, would I take advantage of its innocence and strike it down with the mother hand it trusted? Whoso knoweth the mother heart, let him judge if it would do that thing. Adam says 348 my brain is turned by my troubles, and that I am become wicked. I am as I am, I did not make myself. They drove us out into this harsh wilderness and shut the gates against us. We that had meant no harm, it is 3 months. We were ignorant then. We are rich in learning now, how rich. We know hunger, thirst, and cold. We know pain, disease, and grief. We know hate, rebellion, and deceit. We know remorse, the conscience that prosecutes guilt and innocence alike, making no distinction. We know weariness of body and spirit, the unrefreshing sleep, the rest which rests not, the dreams which restore Eden and banish it again with the waking. We know misery, we know torture and the heartbreak. We know humiliation and insult. We know indecency, immodesty, and the soiled mind. We know the scorn that attaches to the transmitted image of God exposed unclothed to the day. We know fear. We know vanity, folly, envy, hypocrisy. We know irreverence. We know blasphemy. We know right from wrong and how to avoid the one and do the other. We know all the rich product of the moral sense, and it is our possession. Would we could sell it for 1 hour of Eden and white purity? Would we could degrade the animals with it? We have it all, that treasure, all but death, 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 what may that be? Adam comes. Well, he still sleeps. That is our second born hour, Abe. He has slept enough for his good, and his garden suffers for his care. Wake him. I have tried and cannot. Then he is very tired, let him sleep on. I think it is his hurt that makes him sleep so long. I answer, it may be so. Then we will let him rest, no doubt the sleep is healing it. Chapter 2. It is a day and a night now that he has slept. We found him by his altar in his field that morning, his face and body drenched in blood. He said his eldest brother struck him down. Then he spoke no more and fell asleep. We laid him in his bed and washed the blood away, and were glad to know the hurt was light and that he had no pain, for if he had had pain he would not have slept. It was in the early morning that we found him. All day he slept that sweet, reposeful sleep, lying always on his back and never moving, never turning. It showed how tired he was, poor thing. He is so good and works so hard, rising with the dawn and laboring till the dark. And now he is overworked. It will be best that he tax himself less after this, and I will ask him. He will do anything I wish. All the day he slept. I know, for I was always near, and made dishes for him and kept them warm against his waking. Often I crept in and fed my eyes upon his gentle face and was thankful for that blessed sleep. And still he slept on, slept with his 350 eyes wide, a strange thing, and made me think he was awake at first, but it was not so, for I spoke and he did not answer. He always answers when I speak. Cain has moods and will not answer, but not Abel. I have sat by him all the night, being afraid he might wake and want his food. His face was very white, and it changed, and he came to look as he had looked when he was a little child in Eden long ago, so sweet and good and dear. It carried me back over the abyss of years, and I was lost in dreams and tears-o hours, I think. Then I came to myself, and thinking he stirred, I kissed his cheek to wake him, but he slumbered on, and I was disappointed. His cheek was cold. I brought sacks of wool and the down of birds and covered him, but he was still cold, and I brought more. Adam has come again and says he is not yet warm. I do not understand it. Chapter 3. We cannot wake him. With my arms clinging about him, I have looked into his eyes, through the veil of my tears, and begged for one little word, and he will not answer. Oh, is it that long sleep, is it death? And will he wake no more? From Satan's Diary. Death has entered the world, the creatures are perishing, one of the family is fallen, the product of the moral sense is complete. The family think ill of death they will change their minds. Samuel Erasmus Moffat, August 16, 1908. His character and his death. August 16th. Early in the evening of the first day of this month, the telephone brought us a paralyzing shock. My nephew, Samuel E. Moffat, was drowned. It was while sea bathing. The seas were running high and he was urged not to venture out, but he was a strong swimmer and not afraid. He made the plunge with confidence, his frightened little son looking on. Instantly he was helpless. The great waves tossed him hither and thither. They buried him. They struck the life out of him. In a minute it was all over. He was 48 years old. He was at his best, physically and mentally, and was well on his way toward earned distinction. He was large-minded and large-hearted. There was no blot nor fleck upon his character. His ideals were high and clean, and by native impulse and without effort he lived up to them. He had been a working journalist, an editorial writer, for nearly 30 years, and yet in that exposed position had preserved his independence in full strength and his principles undecayed. Several years ago he accepted a high place on the staff of Collier's Weekly, and was occupying it when he died in an early chapter of my autobiography, written 3 years ago. I have told how he wrote from San Francisco, when he was a stripling, and asked me to help him get a berth on a daily paper there, and how he submitted to the severe conditions I imposed, and got the berth and kept it 16 years. As child and lad his health was delicate, capricious, insecure, and his eyesight affected by a malady which debarred him from book study and from reading. This was a bitter hardship for him, for he had a wonderful memory and a sharp hunger for knowledge. School was not for him, yet while still a little boy he acquired an education, and a good one. He managed it after a method of his own devising. He got permission to listen while the classes of the normal school recited their abstruse lessons and blackboarded their mathematics. By questioning the little chap, it was found that he was keeping up with the star scholars of the school. In those days he paid us a visit in Hartford. It was when he was about 12 years old. I was laboriously constructing an ancient history game at the time, to be played by my wife and myself, and I was digging the dates and facts for it out of cyclopedias, a dreary and troublesome business. I had sweated blood over that work and was pardonably proud of the result, as far as I had gone. I showed the child my mass of notes, and he was at once as excited as I should have been over a Sunday school picnic at his age. He wanted to help, he was eager to help, and I was as willing to let him as I should have been to give away an interest in a 353 surgical operation that I was getting tired of. I made him free of the cyclopedias, but he never consulted them. He had their contents in his head. All alone he built and completed the game rapidly and without effort. Away back in 80 or 81, when the grand eruption of Krakatoa, in the Straits of Sunda, occurred, the news reached San Francisco late in the night, too late for editors to hunt for information about that unknown volcano encyclopedias and write it up exhaustively and learnedly in time for the first edition. The managing editor said, "Send to Moffat's home, rout him out and fetch him, he will know all about it, he won't need the cyclopedia." Which was true. He came to the office and swiftly wrote it all up without having to refer to books. I will take a few paragraphs from the article about him in Collier's Weekly. If you wanted to know any fact about any subject, it was quicker to go to him than to books of reference. His good nature made him the martyr of interruptions. In the middle of a sentence, in a hurry hour, he would look up happily, and whether the thing you wanted was railroad statistics or international law, he would bring it out of one of the pigeonholes in his brain. A born dispenser of the light, he made the giving of information a privilege and a pleasure on all occasions. This cyclopaedic faculty was marvelous, because it was only a small part of his equipment which became invaluable in association with other gifts. A student and a humanist, he delighted equally in books and in watching all the workings of a political convention. For any one of the learned professions he had conspicuous ability. He chose that which, in the cloister of the editorial rooms, makes fame for others. Any judge or cabinet minister of our time may well be proud of a career of such usefulness 354 as his. Men with such a quality of mind as Moffat's are rare. Anyone who discussed with him the things he advocated stood a little awed to discover that here was a man who had carefully thought out what would be best for all the people in the world 2 or 3 generations hence, and guided his work according to that standard. This was the one broad subject that covered all his interests. In detail, they included the movement for universal peace, about which he wrote repeatedly. So small a thing as a plan to place flowers on the window sills and fire escapes of New York tenement houses enlisted not only the advocacy of his pen, but his direct personal presence and cooperation. Again and again, in his department in this paper, he gave endorsement and aid to similar movements, whether broad or narrow in their scope, the saving of the American forests, fighting tuberculosis, providing free meals for poor school children in New York, old age pensions, safety appliances for protecting factory employees, the beautifying of American cities, the creation of inland waterways, industrial peace. He leaves behind him wife, daughter, and son inconsolable mourners. The son is 13, a beautiful human creature, with the broad and square face of his father and his grandfather, a face in which one reads high character and intelligence. This boy will be distinguished by and by, I think. In closing this slight sketch of Samuel E. Moffat, I wish to dwell with lingering and a special emphasis upon the dignity of his character and ideals. In an age when we would rather have money than health, and would rather have another man's money than our own, he lived and died unsordid. In a day when the surest road to national greatness and admiration is by showy and rotten demagoguery in politics and by giant crimes in finance, he lived and died a gentleman. The new planet. The astronomers at Harvard have observed perturbations in the orbital movement of Neptune, such as might be caused by the presence of a new planet in the vicinity. I believe in the new planet. I was 11 years old in 1846 when Leverrier and Adams and Mary Somerville discovered Neptune through the disturbance and discomfort it was causing Uranus. Perturbations, they call that kind of disturbance. I had been having those perturbations myself for more than 2 months. In fact, all through watermelon time, for they used to keep dogs in some of the patches in those days. You notice that these recent perturbations are considered remarkable because they perturbate through 3 seconds of arc, but really that is nothing. Often I used to perturbate through as much as half an hour if it was a dog that was attending to the perturbating. There isn't any Neptune that can out-perturbate a dog, and I know because I am not speaking from hearsay. Why, if there was a planet 250,000 light-years, the other side of Neptune's orbit, Professor Pickering would discover it in a minute if it could perturbate equal to a dog. Give me a dog every time when it comes to perturbating. You let a dog jump out at you all of a sudden in the dark of the moon, and you see what a small thing 3 seconds of arc is. The shutter that goes through you then would open the seams of Noah's ark itself, from figurehead to rudder post, and you would drop that melon the same as if you had never had any but just a casual interest in it. I know about these things because this is not tradition I am writing, but history. Now then, notice this. About the end of August 1846, a change came over me and I resolved to lead a better life, so I reformed. But it was just as well anyway because they had got to having guns and dogs both. Although I was reformed, the perturbations did not stop. Does that strike you? They did not stop, they went right on and on and on for 3 weeks, clear up to the 23d of September. Then Neptune was discovered and the whole mystery stood explained. It shows that I am so sensitively constructed that I perturbate when any other planet is disturbed. This has been going on all my life. It only happens in the watermelon season, but that has nothing to do with it and has no significance. Geologists and anthropologists and horticulturists all tell me it is only ancestral and hereditary, and that is what I think myself. Now then, I got to perturbating again this summer all through watermelon time, and where do you think? Up here on my farm in Connecticut. Is that significant? Unquestionably it is, for you couldn't raise a watermelon on this farm with a derrick.